Have you ever wondered how brands use racers' insights to develop better products? How they turn those dreams into reality? We're here at Ergon's Global HQ to find out how they go from a sketch to a World Championship winning product. Grips are important, but don't just take my word for it. Here are pro downhill racers Valley Hall and Troy Brosnan.
For me, from a grip is one of the most important points of the bike.
Properly, you only have like 3 contact points on your bike. It's your pedals, it's your grips, it's the saddle.
It's been pretty good working with them to build something, especially like this grip, that lasts pretty long, but also like kind of is soft enough and tacky enough and everything that I want out of a grip.
The older you get, the more you progress, and you're trying to find details that make you a little bit faster or try to adapt. You look at everything and you try to have the best tires, you try to have the best bike, obviously, suspension, everything needs to fit. And obviously grips, like everybody knows it. If you have arm pump or if you get sore fingers from braking and everything, it can be a huge benefit if you have good grips.
Design stories aren't really about the products. They're about the people behind the products. Be those designers, development engineers, or sports scientists, production engineers, test riders, or racers. They've all got different thoughts and ideas on what might make a better grip. So how do they work together to create a World Championship winning grip? Each person in the design and development process brings different skills and different insights and different knowledge. So it's a real depth process. It's not just as simple as a rider wanting X and getting X. There's so much more nuance to it. A grip's a grip, right? Well, actually, no. It's a lot more complex than that. We've got friction, we've got damping, we've got control surfaces, we've got to clamp it onto a bar. And then after all that, we've got to try and make a product that we can produce time and time again. It is a really complex conundrum. Friction, we need to increase the friction load that the grip has, because that means that we can reduce the amount of grip force that we need to apply with our hand. And it comes in 2 ways. We've got mechanical grip and we've got chemical grip. Mechanical grip, this is simply how our hand fits onto the grip. So how all these tread lugs and all these different pads interact with our palm and fingers can generate different levels of grip. And how these contours and shapes both deform and conform to our hands mean that we get a different response. We're going to get a different feel. And how they react also means they're going to change how they grip, whether they're wet, whether they're muddy, whether they're dry, and whether they're dusty. Now, with chemical grip, what we're looking for is a softness, a tackiness to the grip. So if a grip is a bit too hard, it feeds back a lot of the forces through the bars, and it can be uncomfortable. It's hard to generate grip, but too soft, it's too mushy and slimy, and we don't get the responses that we want. The other factor is that often with grips, they're softer by adding oil, which can be toxic. So it's another thing we've got to look at to try and make a grip that's soft enough without being toxic. Damping. This is a fine balance on a grip like this. With comfort grips, it's easy to imagine that you'll have lots of damping and lots of support for your hand. Whereas for a race grip, you need this fine balance of having enough feedback, so a thin enough grip that you can control it and understand what's happening with the bike, but also enough damping that you're not going to get arm pump or sore hands. Control surfaces, that's how we're going to get the most from this grip. And with a downhill grip, it's a really tight compromise, because we need a grip that offers lots of support, because we've got high loads. We're going to have to grip really tightly, but we also need these really fine skills for last minute braking and really urgent gear changes. So there's a lot going on. Clamping force. How do the grips stay in place with all these loads moving through them? Crashes are where the edges of traction and control are found. So how can you design a grip that's going to stand up to these impacts? Having a race day product that only lasts a race run, or maybe even a single day at a World Cup, isn't practical or sustainable. So how do you get a production product from a race product?
The basic of ergonomic, I would say, is to give a good ratio between damping and control. And when you reach the sweet spot of damping and control, the rider has the perfect feedback, but at the same time is in his level of efficiency, of body energy that he could give to the grip. And so we speak about the grip circumference and we speak about the textures that we can adjust to give this certain sweet spot of damping. And then you have to combine it in a versatile shape, I would say, to bring it to a wide target group. Like to not leave it only to the racers.
So how does the story start? With product development.
So yeah, it all starts outside on the field. We have to talk to riders, we have to meet the racers, see do they have problems with anything, do they have any needs that are different to what we can offer already. You try to gather all these experiences and bring it into a product that is not only good for them, that will also be good for the end consumer. First step is to all sit together, get all the ideas on a piece of paper, and then maybe draw the first simple cats. And with these, create the first prototypes downstairs, get an idea, because in the end, you want to touch it, you want to feel it, and you want to get an idea of what you're creating before you open a real mold. So let's go downstairs and have a look. Yeah, have a seat.
Wow. Okay, so this is where you get all of the interaction and everything in one. So what's the next step in the process is how you create these prototypes. Like, how do you do it?
We kind of get an idea what we're starting with, and then we build something that we can touch, we can feel, we can get an idea. Is it as high as we want it? Should we make it slimmer? Okay. So we print stuff, we mold stuff, especially with the really soft molds, including 3D printing. It's really nice that we can do everything in-house nowadays.
Okay.
So that gives us a big advantage compared to the older days, where it was a bit more of a guessing game.
And I guess it means that you've got these ideas on paper, you've got these sort of like textures, and you can literally pull it all together really quickly. But what's the story with so many different samples of these textures?
Well, I mean, you got to start somewhere. So, so you basically just go crazy, figure out any type of form, any type of idea, maybe with a designer to have an idea of what is our design or could be our design, so it doesn't look too off Ergon. And then you just start and get all these things made, and then just sit down and touch them and see which one you like the most. And I mean, feel for yourself. There's huge differences in between all these textures, and the only way to find it out is to actually feel it, because I can show all of them on the computer and you won't be able to tell a difference
of course.
just by the looks of it. So,
and I think what I find fascinating is that you can feel the difference in height, and it's, well, I don't have a caliper with me, but I guess it's sort of under a mil of difference, but it feels a huge difference. There seems to be quite a different core sort of shape, effectively, of this. So where did that stem from?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're working with the downhill pros, with the best of the best. It's basically Formula One of our sport. So we're trying to find the last bit of millimeters of material we can actually get, and that results in having off centers from the main core, so it will be a bit more material on top, less at the bottom, because that's where you don't cushion it. And that whole thing you gotta 3D print and get a feeling for it, right? And you can see it here. You've already seen it upstairs, and just the shape of the bow or the rise in the grip, just to get a feel of where you want to have the highest point. You need to get a feel. So you start here, you make one here, you have everyone feel it, everyone gives an opinion, and then you get further and further into the details.
Once you've done all the design work, we've done all the science, we've got all the data, and we've got a prototype in hand, how and where do we test them? On the trails, on the racetrack, or in the lab?
Yeah, it's a bit of a mix of both. Sometimes we send them out, which, I mean, they're all busy, so you gotta wait a bit longer. And if we're too tight on the schedule, or we just want the answers now, we drive out there. We drove out to Valley. My colleague Clarissa, Janina, they drove out to Valley with the prototypes we made. She was able to get the first feel. We did the same with Troy and Fabian and the whole team. And, just so they can get a real first feel of a soft grip.
I was pretty epic because they came all the way from Koblenz to Saalbach, and as everybody knows, or who lives in Europe, it's quite a far drive. And they arrived with a prototype. And honestly, I had no idea how much work you can put into a grip. Like all those engineers just working on a simple grip. It's just rubber on plastic. And for me, I've never expected that there's so much science behind it, but also it makes so much more sense. And
it was still far off from what we're selling now.
Of course,
but
yeah.
They were able to say yes or no to certain features, and we could adjust. And that's how we ended up at the final product.
When I've seen the prototype for the first time, even though it was just like the one ride rubber, because it was so fragile that they were like, oh, you shouldn't really ride with it because you don't know if it's gonna fall off your bike or something. But when I've seen already the shape, it was so different to the grip shape before, and it looked so decent. Like you looked at it and it's like, yeah, this is gonna work for sure.
In here, we've done many. The textures were probably more than 10 batches with each like 10 to 20 different iterations.
Wow.
And like heights and everything. So that was a huge load. This is just a small part of it. Same with the grips that were actually printed or made in softer compound. That was a huge amount of numbers. I think we're at V8, so version 8 or something. And these versions were, most of them, except if we had ones with very small changes, most of them also went to the riders back and forth to get an idea, to get a feedback on the changes we make.
What we do now throughout these loops is maybe trying to tilt a specific area a little more, bring out a texture more, because sometimes textures can also be like irritating for your fingers or when you grip around the bar. And when the pro riders are telling us, hey, please work on this kind of area, with those silicone molds, it's pretty easy and a very good way to redo this step and just bring the idea from the rider back into the product.
Realistically, the final, I guess, prototype was really dialed in on terms of, you know, where the construction of it. It was just picking the rubber. So yeah, it was pretty cool to try different ones. And then we all went to like a pretty soft one, but not the softest. It just seemed like the softest had a bit too much squidge in it. And then yeah, that was kind of picked between everyone, that it went to the one to make it all the way.
So how do we move from a very final prototype to a production-ready product? Well, product engineering.
Well, that is the final step, and that includes the designers, the engineers, and just a possibility of what you can actually produce.
Okay.
How the mold is structured and how everything is actually made in reality, because this is dreaming, this is building, this is, you know, we figure out how to build it, we make it, but there is not 100% backup from what's possible in the engineering world and to actually produce thousands of them to the customers. So that is then the final step.
There's a point in the development of a grip where we say, okay, this product is kind of final, this is what we want to get. And then we try to source our manufacturers that are able to do this. Throughout these loops, we have different versions, try to fit everything perfectly to make it as best as possible and to reach the high quality that we're looking for. In these prototypes, you have no texture on because it's really hard to do in a prototype way. And what we have on the final product is kind of a micro texture. And this is a very good example of how we develop this, because this texture is all CNC milled at our manufacturer for the injection molding tools, or was asked by the pros to get as much grip as possible, not only on the special surfaces, it's meant to work on all the grip around. When it comes to material sourcing, we have different plastic or TPE manufacturers that work with us, and what we try with them is to Also see where this product is used. So if we have a grip that is more used in an urban area, you don't need the same compound as you would need for a downhill grip. You want to have more damping, you want to have a little more softness, but still you want to keep the durability so it lasts as long as possible. And to achieve this, we have a very good partner that gave us this material, that material. Yeah, so to make sure that we reach those high quality standards, we also try to test our materials and our products in an independent institute that is just there for either specifically to analyze all the toxicity that is not in there, or that to make sure that it's not included in those grips. Or also we test our grips after a norm, so that the grip holds onto your bar safely in every possible way. And for those, we also have partners that we sourced ourselves that can test independently.
Now we know a lot more about the story behind this product, but what about that collective, that team behind the grip, all those people? How do they feel about this new grip?
Just gave me a lot of confidence that we're doing the right thing, and that they valued my feedback is a pretty cool sign, and I hope we can just continue like that in the future.
Yeah, it's actually crazy to think that this grip that I've had, a lot of development into has kind of become, I don't know, like I guess a staple on a lot of people's bikes, a lot of races. I remember the first time that we finally got the prototypes and we raced them at the first World Cup. There was a lot of people that was like, what's that grip? And obviously because Ergon hadn't brought it out, we hadn't said much about it and couldn't really say much about it. You'd get a lot of top riders looking and going, what's that? And they'd feel it and go, that actually feels really good. And then, so far it just goes on to teams going, all right, maybe let's look at an Ergon sponsorship for the team just so we can run that grip. So it's gone like almost a full circle, which is pretty awesome. And just to be a part of it and to see it kind of, broadening out there in the world is pretty awesome.
To be honest, this is kind of amazing. When you have a grip on all of these riders' bikes and you see it winning, best feeling ever to know that you or your company and your team is part of this, I would say. So amazing would be the best and easiest word to describe it, I would say.
Actually, I feel very proud because it's the essence of our job, of our engineering, of our passion that we work at Ergon. We try to move things, we try to bring our ideas to the market so that every customer can feel the effort that we put into our designs. And it doesn't work all the time, which is because of many influences in the way that we develop our products, and we are also very honest in our assessment of our products. And in this case, it turns out that we've nailed our idea and find good solutions. But at the same time, it keeps me motivated to bring this effort and this motivation to into our next development products. And it's not said that we nail it as well. So we try to stay humble, but try to bring our ideas to the market.
Developing a grip is a complex task. From the human factors, from the hand strength, the science behind ergonomics. Then you've got all the nuanced needs of a racer. Then you've got the material science behind making and producing the grip consistently at high quality time and time again. I think Ergon are onto a winning grip with the GDH.